When I got to work, the CEO suddenly told me my daughter is starting today, so I have to let you go.
I never thought a normal morning could end up being the day that changed everything. My name is Alec Rose, and for years, I believed that hard work, loyalty, and dedication could build the life I wanted. Every day, I woke up before the sun, pressed my work clothes until they were sharp, and walked into that office with a kind of quiet pride. I wasn't the smartest person in the room, and I wasn't born into money or privilege, but I had something I thought would carry me through: perseverance. I gave that company everything I had, every ounce of energy, every late night when everyone else had already gone home, every weekend I should have spent resting, but instead spent preparing for the next big deadline. The truth is, I found safety in that routine. The small paycheck I brought home wasn't much, but it was steady. It paid my rent, it bought groceries, it gave me enough to take care of myself, and it gave me dignity because it was mine. I earned it. I always believed that if I kept pushing, if I kept showing up and proving myself, I would never lose it. I thought the world worked like that. Effort equals security. That morning started no different from any other. The elevator doors opened, I stepped into the office, and everything looked exactly the same. The quiet hum of machines, the shuffle of papers, co-workers greeting each other with half smiles and tired nods. Nothing about it hinted at what was coming. But sometimes life doesn't give warnings. Sometimes it takes the most ordinary moment and twists it into something unforgettable. I still remember the way the CEO's assistant looked at me when I walked past her desk. It was a look I couldn't quite understand. Half nervous, half distant. I brushed it off at the time, convincing myself she must have just been stressed. I couldn't have guessed that she already knew something I didn't, that my life was about to split in two. Whoa. Minutes later, I was called into the CEO's office. My heart jumped, but not with fear, with hope. I told myself, maybe he's finally noticed me. Maybe this is about a promotion, or recognition for all the nights I stayed late when no one else would. My hands even trembled with anticipation as I opened the door, as if some long-awaited reward was finally mine. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew I was wrong. His face wasn't warm, it wasn't inviting. It was cold, distant, as if I were already a stranger. He didn't ask me to sit down. He didn't thank me for my years of loyalty. He just looked me in the eyes and said words that still echo in my chest. My daughter is starting today, so I have to let you go. I can't even describe the feeling in that moment. My heart didn't just drop, it shattered. I thought I misheard him, that he couldn't possibly mean what he said. Fired? Just like that? Not because I had failed, not because I had made mistakes, but because someone else had the right last name? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him everything I had sacrificed. But the way he looked at me, unmoved, already done with me, told me it wouldn't matter. His decision was made long before I entered that room. Walking back to my desk felt like walking through fire. Everyone's eyes followed me, but no one said a word. Some looked away, others whispered, but nobody stood up for me. I packed my things in silence. Each item I placed into the box, a reminder of the years I had given to a company that tossed me aside in a single sentence. A few co-workers muttered, "I'm sorry," or shook their heads in disbelief, but none of them dared to confront what had happened. Their silence was its own kind of betrayal. As I carried my box toward the door, my chest tightened with more than just grief. It was humiliation. I wasn't just losing a job. I was being erased, replaced. Every ounce of my work, every drop of sweat I poured into that place, suddenly belonged to someone else. Someone who hadn't earned it. Someone who hadn't spent nights crying from exhaustion just to get through. And the cruelest part? His daughter would never know the cost of what she took. She would sit in my chair, at my desk, and she would never feel the weight of the sacrifices I had made to keep that seat warm. To her, it would be handed over as if it had always belonged to her. To me, it was the knife in my back. The moment I stepped outside with my box, the sun felt different. The air felt heavier. And in my chest, I carried not just fear of what came next, but a rage I had never known before. Because this wasn't just about me losing a job. It was about power deciding my worth. It was about privilege replacing effort. It was about the cruel reality that no matter how hard I worked, I could never compete with someone who already had the key to the door I was breaking myself to open. That was the day my world cracked open. And I didn't know it yet, but losing that job was only the beginning of a much darker journey. Because when the powerful decide you don't matter, they don't just take your paycheck. They take your dignity, your voice, your very sense of who you are. And what came next would test me in ways I never thought I could survive. I stood outside that building, clutching the small box that held the last pieces of my career. And for a long time, I just stared at the glass doors behind me. I had walked through those doors every single day for years, believing I belonged on the other side. But now, as people filed in and out, not one face turned toward me. Not one person stopped to ask if I was okay. I was invisible, a ghost on the sidewalk, dismissed and forgotten. At first, I couldn't move. My legs felt like they weren't mine. My chest was so tight it hurt to breathe. I had always believed that if you worked hard enough, people would notice, people would value you. But standing there with my career shoved into a cardboard box, I felt like the world had just ripped away that belief. It was gone, shattered in one brutal moment. When I finally forced myself to walk away, the city streets felt unfamiliar. I knew the same buses were running, the same cars honked in traffic, the same people rushed past me with coffee in hand, but everything looked different. Or maybe I looked different. I felt stripped bare, like everyone who glanced at me could somehow see my failure, my shame. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the box. Back in my apartment, I placed it down on the table and just stared at it. My whole career boiled down to a few pens, a photo frame, and some papers. I wanted to cry, but instead I sat there in silence, numb, like I had left a part of myself back in that office. My body was in my apartment, but my spirit was still standing in front of the CEO, hearing him say those words. My daughter is starting today, so I have to let you go. The next few days blurred together. I tried to distract myself with chores, but nothing worked. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, his daughter, sitting in my chair, smiling, surrounded by people who used to stand by me. That image haunted me. It wasn't just about losing the job. It was about being replaced so easily, so carelessly. But what made it worse was how people reacted. Friends told me, "That's just how the world works." Some even said I should be grateful I lasted as long as I did without connections. Those words cut even deeper because they carried a quiet truth I didn't want to face. That maybe effort was never going to be enough. That maybe, from the very start, the system was rigged against people like me. Still, a part of me refused to accept that. I told myself, no, I earned my place. I fought for it, and I deserved to keep fighting. So I decided to go back one last time, to collect the last of my things I had left behind in my rush. I thought maybe it would give me closure, maybe it would help me move forward, but I was wrong. The moment I stepped inside the office again, I realized how quickly life can erase you. My nameplate was gone. My desk, once cluttered with work, was spotless, now claimed by someone else. And there she was, his daughter, sitting in my chair, using my computer, smiling as if it had always been hers. She didn't even acknowledge me, didn't look up, didn't nod, didn't offer a single word. To her, I wasn't a person. I was just a shadow passing through. And the others, my old co-workers, they surrounded her, eager to impress, eager to adapt to the new reality. The same people who once leaned on me for help now leaned toward her with forced admiration, pretending nothing had changed. That moment crushed me in a way the CEO's words hadn't. It was one thing to be fired, but it was another to watch your entire existence at that place vanish as if you never mattered. The humiliation, the rage, the heartbreak, it all mixed together until I felt sick. My hands trembled, my face burned, and I wanted to scream. That was my desk. That was my work. That should have been my future. But no one would have listened. No one wanted to risk being the next target. Their silence was deafening. It told me everything I needed to know, that loyalty, friendship, even respect were only temporary in the shadow of power. I left without saying a word, but inside, my thoughts screamed louder than ever. I kept asking myself, how can this happen? How can years of sweat and sacrifice mean nothing compared to a last name? And worse, I wondered how many others had faced the same fate, erased not because they failed, but because they never had privilege to begin with. Walking home, I felt like the walls of the city were closing in around me. Every step echoed with the same question. If they could take everything from me so easily, what chance do I have at building it again? And yet, even as fear weighed heavy on me, there was something else. Something burning beneath the fear. Anger. A deep, fiery anger that told me I could, and stay silent, that I couldn't just fade away like they wanted me to. What I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning. Losing my job was the first wound. But the fight that came after would test me more than I ever imagined. Because when privilege wins and power silences the truth, the people who lose aren't just people like me. They are voices. They are futures. They are entire lives. And I was about to learn just how hard it is to be heard in a world that would rather look away. I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind refused to stop replaying everything I had seen. The CEO's cold face, his daughter sitting at my desk, the way my co-workers smiled at her like she had built everything I had worked for. Every time I closed my eyes, those images came rushing back, stabbing me like knives. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made a mistake all these years, believing that effort mattered. The next morning, I woke up later than usual. For the first time in years, I didn't have to set an alarm, didn't have a reason to rush. And instead of relief, it felt like punishment. I sat at the edge of my bed, looking at the empty space where my work bag usually sat, and it hit me all over again. I wasn't going back. My routine, my stability, my purpose, it had all been stolen in a single sentence. I tried to distract myself by making breakfast, but even the simplest tasks felt heavy. The smell of coffee, the sound of the toaster, they all reminded me of mornings before, mornings when I had somewhere to go, when I had value. Now, every sip of coffee tasted bitter. Every bite of toast felt like sand. It was like the world had lost its flavor the moment I lost my place in it. But the world didn't stop moving just because I had been broken. The rent was still due. Bills still piled up. My phone buzzed with reminders that didn't care about. My humiliation didn't care about the injustice I had faced. Survival doesn't wait for grief. And that's when the real fear began to sink in. I opened my laptop, determined to look for new jobs. But even that simple act felt crushing. My hands hovered over the keyboard as doubt filled my mind. Why would anyone hire me? What do I even have to offer? If my years of loyalty could be erased so easily, What chance do I have anywhere else? Each application I started felt like shouting into a void, my words disappearing before anyone even cared to read them. Days turned into weeks, and rejection emails became my new routine. Some companies didn't even bother replying at all. Every unanswered application felt like another door slamming in my face. And with each one, the same thought echoed louder. Was I ever good enough? Or had I been fooling myself all along? But as the weeks stretched on, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just grief anymore. It wasn't just fear. It was anger. Hot, burning anger that refused to fade. Not just at the CEO, not just at his daughter, but at the system itself. At the way the world allowed privilege to outweigh effort, allowed silence to cover injustice, allowed people like me to be erased without a trace. I started noticing things I hadn't before. News stories about people passed over for jobs, workers fired without cause, opportunities stolen by someone with the right last name, the right connections, or the right skin color. And with every story, I saw myself. My pain wasn't isolated. It was part of something bigger, something crueler. The more I saw, the harder it became to stay quiet. But speaking up wasn't easy. The few times I tried to tell my story, people dismissed it. That's just business, they said. Or worse, they shrugged, as if injustice was normal, as if it was something I was supposed to accept. That silence, that indifference, it cut deeper than the rejection, because it told me that not only had I been erased, but my pain wasn't even worth noticing. One evening, found myself standing in front of the building again. I don't even know why I went there. Maybe part of me wanted to see if it was real, if my replacement was really sitting where I used to sit. Through the glass doors, I could see her laughing with the same co-workers who once leaned on me for help. And in that moment, something inside me cracked wide open. I realized I had been grieving the wrong thing. Yes, I lost my job, but what hurt more was losing my identity. I had built my life around the idea that if I gave enough, I would always belong. But the truth was, belonging had never been in my hands. It was controlled by people with power, people who could erase me at will. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching from the outside like I was staring at a life that used to be mine. And then it hit me with full force. This wasn't just about me. This was about every person who has ever been overlooked, replaced, or erased because they didn't have privilege on their side. This was about the quiet injustices that happen every day, behind closed doors, disguised as business decisions. Walking away from that building that night, I made a silent promise to myself. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when, but I wasn't going to let my story disappear in silence. I wasn't going to let them erase me completely, because if I stayed quiet, if I let myself vanish without a word, then they would win. And I couldn't let that happen. Not for me, and not for everyone else living the same pain. What I didn't know at that moment was that speaking out would come at a cost. That standing up to tell the truth would expose me to new battles, new humiliations, and new dangers I wasn't prepared for. But that fire inside me, that anger mixed with heartbreak, had already started to grow. And once it started, there was no turning back. The fire inside me kept me going, even when everything else felt broken. But the truth is, no fire burns without fuel, and every day I walked past that building, every time I saw her sitting in the life that used to be mine, the flames grew hotter. I told myself I could handle it, that I could stay strong, but the weight of it all was crushing me. The turning point came the day I went back to collect the last small things I had left behind. It should have been simple. Just a quick trip, grab my things and leave. but life doesn't give you neat endings. The moment I stepped through those doors, I knew I didn't belong anymore. My name wasn't just gone from my desk. It was gone from the walls, the files, the conversations. I was no longer part of that world. I was a stranger in the place I had once given everything to. And there she was again, his daughter, sitting in my chair, using my computer, smiling as if she had earned every bit of it. She didn't even look up at me, didn't nod, didn't offer a word. To her, I wasn't even worth acknowledging. And the others? My co-workers, the same people I had carried through late-night projects, the ones who had once leaned on me. They surrounded her, laughing, flattering, pretending she had always been the one holding everything together. I stood there frozen, watching my entire life be rewritten in front of my eyes. It wasn't just that I had lost my job. It was as if I had never existed. My years of work, my sacrifices, my identity, it all belonged to her now. Humiliation burned through me, hot and sharp. My chest tightened, my face flushed. My hands trembled so badly, I nearly dropped the small bag I was holding. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand justice. That was my chair. That was my work. That should have been my future. But the silence around me was suffocating. No one spoke. No one defended me. The air was thick with avoidance, with fear, with the kind of silence that tells you the truth no one dares to say out loud. She was untouchable. It wasn't just that she was the CEO's daughter. It was what that meant. Power, privilege, a shield against accountability. And me, Iwe, is disposable, replaceable, forgotten. In that moment, something inside me broke. I realized that all the years I had believed in fairness, in effort, in loyalty, it had all been a lie. I had been building my life on a foundation that was never meant to hold me. Because in a world like this, merit doesn't matter. Connections do. Privilege does. Skin color does. And when those things are against you, it doesn't matter how hard you fight. You'll always be the first one pushed aside. I left the building shaking, my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. My legs felt weak, my chest heavy, but my anger was stronger than my pain. As I walked down the street, the world around me blurred. The traffic, the voices, the sounds of the city, they all faded under the weight of the truth crashing down on me. That was the moment I understood the depth of the injustice. It wasn't just about me losing a paycheck. It was about dignity stolen, identity erased. Years of my life traded away for a smile and a bloodline. I remember standing at the corner of the street, gripping the strap of my bag so tightly my knuckles turned white, and thinking, this is how people disappear. Not with violence, not with noise, but with quiet decisions made in closed offices. With silence from the people who should have spoken up. With privilege that walks in the door and takes what it wants while the rest of us are forced out into the cold. And the cruelest part? The world would keep spinning like nothing had happened. She would sit in my chair tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, smiling as if it had always belonged to her. My co-workers would keep flattering her, pretending I had never existed. And I would just be another name crossed off a list, another story no one wanted to hear. But as I stood there, trembling with anger and heartbreak, one thought grew louder than all the others. If my years of loyalty could be erased this easily, if my voice could be silenced this quickly, then what hope is there for anyone like me? I didn't know the answer then, but that question haunted me, and it still does. Because that day, I lost more than a job. I lost the illusion that hard work could protect me. I lost the belief that loyalty mattered. I lost the idea that I was safe. And in its place, I was left with something raw, something sharp, something that demanded to be heard. That was the moment I knew. If I didn't tell this story, if I didn't find a way to speak the truth, then they would win. And I couldn't let that happen, not just for me, but for everyone else whose stories end the same way, erased before they're even told. I wish I could tell you that walking out of that building was the end, that I wiped my tears, dusted myself off, and started fresh. But the truth? The story stayed with me. It seeped into every corner of my life in ways I never expected. At first, I tried to bury it. I told myself it was just a job, that people lose jobs every day, that I'd find another. But every time I sat in silence, the memories replayed like a film I couldn't turn off. The look on her face as she sat in my chair, the way my coworkers' laughter filled the room, rewriting history as if I had never existed, the silence, that unbearable silence. Days turned into weeks, and the shame didn't leave me. I carried it like a shadow. I questioned everything. Was I ever good enough? Was my hard work ever really seen? Or had I been nothing more than a placeholder, waiting for the right name, the right bloodline, to show up and erase me? But then something shifted. I started noticing the stories around me. A friend who lost her promotion to the boss's son. A neighbor fired after speaking up, replaced by someone with connections. The pattern wasn't mine alone. It was everywhere. Hidden in plain sight, silenced behind closed doors, swallowed up by the same quiet injustice that had swallowed me. And that's when I realized my story wasn't just about me. It was part of a bigger Ruth. A truth we're told to ignore because it's uncomfortable, because it reveals a world that isn't fair, no matter how much we pretend it is. It wasn't just about losing a job. It was about what that loss represented, about the way privilege shields some while others are left exposed, about how skin color, last names, and bloodlines can open doors or slam them shut before you even have the chance to knock. For the longest time, I thought speaking about it would make me sound bitter, like I couldn't move on. But silence protects the powerful. Silence allows the same cycle to continue, over and over again, swallowing up lives and dreams until nothing is left but the fragments of what could have been. So I chose not to stay silent. I chose to tell you this, to share what happened to me, even though it still hurts, even though it still burns. Because if my voice shakes, it's only because the weight of the truth is heavy. But heavy truths are the ones that need to be carried the most. Looking back now, I see that what I lost was more than a paycheck or a title. I lost the safety net I thought I had in hard work. I lost the belief that loyalty meant protection. And I lost the comfort of thinking that the world was fairer than it really is. But I also gained something. I gained clarity. I gained the courage to stop pretending everything was fine. And I gained the conviction that stories like mine need to be told, not buried. Because what happened to me isn't rare. It's not a single accident. It's the same injustice wearing different masks across offices, schools, neighborhoods, everywhere. It's people being silenced, overlooked, or replaced because someone with power decided they could be. And that's the part I can't let go of. That's the part I refuse to let fade away. So I'll ask you, how many more times does this have to happen? How many more people need to be discarded before we finally see it for what it is? Before we stop pretending it's just bad luck or business as usual and start calling it what it really is, an injustice. I can't change what happened to me. I can't rewrite the past. But I can tell my story, and maybe, just maybe, my story will make someone else feel less alone. Maybe it will make someone pause before they laugh along, before they stay silent, before they look away. Because silence may protect the powerful, but truth, it protects us. All of us who have ever been erased, overlooked, or pushed aside. I walked away that day broken, yes, but not destroyed, because even in the wreckage, I carried the one thing they couldn't take from me, my voice. And now, I use it, not for revenge, not for pity, but for truth. And I'll leave you with this. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. So ask yourself, when the next story like mine unfolds, will you stay silent? Or will you finally speak?